6 years, 37 countries, between 70 and 85 million lives. These aren't just numbers. These are people. Mothers, fathers, children, soldiers. The loss caused by a world war remains a reality that is difficult to fully grasp even today. World War II was the largest armed conflict in history. But how did this war begin? Why did it start? And why did it end exactly this way? In the last 23 videos on this channel, we've examined each of the war's most critical battles, one by one. From Stalingrad to El Alamein, from Normandy to Leyte Gulf, from Iwo Jima to Berlin. Every battle is a separate story, a separate turning point. Today is the time to take a step back, the time to look at the bigger picture. Why did this war break out? What forces dragged the world into this catastrophe? What decisions altered the course of history? And most importantly, how did this war shape the world we live in today? If you're ready, let's begin. To understand World War II, you must first understand how World War I ended. 1918, Germany surrendered, and the Treaty of Versailles was signed. This treaty placed the entire burden on Germany. War reparations, territorial losses, military restrictions, and most importantly, the sole responsibility for the war. This war guilt clause left a deep wound in German society. The 1920s and 1930s were a period of economic disaster for Germany. Hyperinflation, followed by the 1929 Great Depression. Unemployment reached its peak. People were in desperate need of bread. And in this atmosphere of despair, Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist Party emerged. Hitler's promise was simple: to restore Germany's honor, fix the economy, and build a greater Germany. These promises resonated with a desperate society. In 1933, Hitler came to power through legal means, and then he gradually dismantled democracy. On the Asian front, Japan had chosen the path of expansion much earlier. Manchuria in 1931, China in 1937. Japan's ideology of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere was based on controlling Asia's natural resources. In Italy, Mussolini had been in power since 1922. As the first example of fascism, it left a significant impact in Europe. These three powers, Germany, Japan, and Italy, formed official alliances in 1936 and 1940. The Axis powers were born. Facing them was a world that was initially reluctant and unprepared. Britain and France pursued a policy of appeasement, attempting to prevent war by granting Hitler minor concessions. The United States, meanwhile, did not wish to get involved in European affairs due to its policy of isolation. This reluctance emboldened Hitler. And on September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II began. The geography and fronts of the war, World War II, was the only true world war in history. The fighting spread across 5 continents. The oceans became battlefields. The skies turned into a war zone. Geographically, we can divide the war into 3 main fronts. European front. It began with Germany's invasion of Western Europe. France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Norway fell. Britain stood alone. Then Germany attacked the east, the Soviet Union, where the largest land battle took place. The Eastern Front, encompassing 127 million people, determined the true fate of the war. North Africa and Mediterranean Front. Rommel's Africa Corps clashed with the British. El Alamein was a turning point. Europe was struck through Italy, its belly. Pacific and Asian Front. It began with Pearl Harbor. Japan expanded rapidly. The balance shifted at Midway. Guadalcanal, Leyte Gulf, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Each island was a battle, and it ended with Japan's surrender. All three of these fronts were interconnected. Developments on one front affected the others. And the Allies' greatest achievement was their ability to act in coordination across all three fronts. An overview of the battles we've covered over the course of 23 videos on this channel. We've examined the most critical battles of World War II, one by one. Now, let's take a bird's-eye view of these battles. What was the role of each in the broader context of the war? European theater. Stalingrad, 1942–43. Germany's turning point in the east. A German army of 250,000 was annihilated. This was the first real sign that Germany could not win the war. El Alamein, 1942. The turning point in North Africa. Rommel was stopped. The Suez Canal and the Middle East were saved. Kursk, 1943. The largest tank battle in history. Germany lost its final major offensive capability here. Normandy, 1944. D-Day. The Western Front opened. Germany was now fighting on two fronts. Market Garden, 1944. The bridge was one step to it, but the south of the Netherlands was liberated. The Ardennes, 1944. Hitler's last great gamble. The Battle of Bastogne and Patton's Relief. Berlin, 1945. The final battle. Hitler died. Germany surrendered. El Alamein, Dunkirk, the Battle of Britain. The Battle of the Atlantic, Monte Cassino. The Hurtgen Forest, the Rhine crossing. Each a separate piece of this grand tableau. Pacific Theater. Pearl Harbor, 1941. The attack that awakened the sleeping giant. America entered the war. Midway, 1942. The turning point where Japan lost 4 aircraft carriers. Guadalcanal, 1942–43. The first major land-sea air battle in the Pacific. Gulf of Leyte, 1944. The largest naval battle in history. Iwo Jima, 1945. So that photo. And the incredible Costa Okinawa, 1945. The final lock on the gateway to the Japanese mainland. Doolittle Raid, 1942. 16 planes, Tokyo. And the spark that ignited Midway, the Philippine Sea, 1944. The Great Mariana Chicken Hunt. Japan's air power was wiped out in a single day. The Tokyo bombing, 1945. Tokyo was burning before Hiroshima. And very few people know this fact. The fall of Singapore, 1942. The beginning of the British Empire's collapse. Who won the war and why? The Allies won. But why? Answering this question means understanding the true lessons of the war. First reason: industrial capacity. America's war economy was the largest mobilization in history. Starting in 1942, American factories produced thousands of planes, hundreds of ships, and millions of rounds of ammunition every month. Henry Ford's factories were producing tanks and planes instead of cars. This industrial might was one of the primary factors determining the war's outcome. None of the Axis powers came close to matching this capacity. Second reason: Allied coordination. The United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union. These three great powers, despite their vastly different ideologies, were able to act in coordination against a common enemy. The personal relationship between Churchill and Roosevelt, the Lend-Lease Agreement, the Tehran and Yalta conferences, all these steps kept the alliance intact. The Axis powers, however, could never establish a corresponding level of coordination. Third reason: strategic mistakes. Hitler tried to crush Britain through aerial warfare before invading. He failed. Then he attacked the Soviets, falling into the trap of a two-front war. Göring shifted from bombing RAF bases to targeting London, allowing the British defense to regroup. Japan overreached at Midway after Pearl Harbor. Collectively, these errors altered the course of the war. Fourth reason: technology and intelligence. Cracking the Enigma codes shifted the balance in the Atlantic. The radar system protected Britain. The Manhattan Project ended the war. Technological superiority had accumulated in the Allies' hands, and this superiority over time made the difference on the battlefield. Fifth reason: human cost and receive. The Soviet Union's contribution deserves special mention here. Approximately 27 million Soviet citizens lost their lives on the Eastern Front. This figure accounts for a significant portion of the war's total human casualties. Without the Soviets paying this price, Germany could have remained standing for much longer. How did World War II shape the world we live in today? Today, the effects of World War II did not remain confined to history books. The world we live in today is, to a large extent, a world shaped by that war. The United Nations. In 1945, the United Nations was established as a lesson learned from the failure of the League of Nations. The goal was clear: to ensure such a war never happens again. The UN remains the cornerstone of global politics today. The 5 permanent members of the Security Council, the US, the UK, France, Russia, and China, reflect the victors of that war. NATO and the Cold War. Following Germany's defeat, Europe was divided into two. The West fell under American influence, the East under Soviet influence. NATO was established in 1949, the West's defense alliance, and the Cold War began. This polarization shaped world politics until 1991. The nuclear age. Hiroshima and Nagasaki revealed a new reality to humanity. Weapons capable of destroying the world now existed. This reality created the balance known as nuclear deterrence throughout the Cold War. And today, nuclear weapons policies remain one of the most sensitive issues in international relations. European Union. Europe chose a different path after the devastation of 2 world wars. The integration process, which began with the European Coal and Steel Community, eventually evolved into the European Union. The idea was simple: countries economically interdependent with one another do not go to war. This idea is still debated today, but Europe's 80-year-long peace rests on this foundation. The end of colonialism. The process that began with the fall of Singapore spread throughout Asia. The invincible image of European colonialism was shattered. After 1945, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Burma, and dozens of other countries gained their independence. This wave also spread to Africa. A large part of today's map of independent nations is an indirect product of World War II. America's role. America, which had pursued a policy of isolation before the war, assumed global leadership afterward. It financed Europe's reconstruction through the Marshall Plan. It guided Japan's democratic transformation. And it remains a decisive actor in world politics today. This role is a direct product of World War II. The Middle East. The establishment of Israel in 1948 was largely the result of the collective conscience stirred by the Holocaust. The roots of the Middle East conflicts that persist to this day trace back to the border demarcations and decisions of that era. The psychological and cultural legacy of war, World War II, holds a unique place in humanity's collective memory. And this memory remains vivid to this day. The Holocaust. 6 million Jews fell victim to the Germans' systematic campaign of extermination. This was the greatest genocide in modern history. The legacy of the Holocaust gave rise to the concept of crimes against humanity in international law. Conventions to prevent genocide were signed, and the pledge never again remains on the global agenda to this day. Veterans and trauma. Millions of soldiers returning from that war spent the rest of their lives in the shadow of the conflict. Post-traumatic stress disorder was referred to at the time as war weariness. Many veterans remained silent, not speaking for years. And one day, they told their grandchildren, These accounts are the only true history we can understand today. Cinema and culture. World War II became the greatest source of cultural inspiration in the 20th century. From Schindler's List to Saving Private Ryan, from Band of Brothers to The Pianist, this war reflects both the worst and the best of humanity at the same time. And that is why the stories have not run dry. And they never will. Reflections on today's conflicts. The roots of most of the conflicts currently raging in various parts of the world lie in the borders drawn, regimes established, and decisions made in the aftermath of World War II. Ukraine, the Middle East, East Asia. The traces of that war are present in all of them. History truly does repeat itself, but sometimes in a different form. Overview. 23 videos. 23 battles. And in each one, we didn't just recount the strategy, the commanders, and the outcomes. We told the stories of the people. The soldier who spent Christmas in the freezing cold at Bastogne. The 700 men who held out for 4 days on the Arnhem Bridge. The Doolittle pilots watching Tokyo burn from afar. The ordinary Englishman who took a fishing boat from Dunkirk and crossed the English Channel. The Polish soldiers who took Monte Cassino but never made it home. All these people were caught in the gears of history's great machine. And the vast majority lived their lives without knowing they had changed history. They simply did their duty. They simply tried to survive. They simply wanted to protect their comrades. World War II teaches us many things. It teaches us how dictatorships grow, slowly, with each small concession. It teaches us that appeasement does not work. It teaches us that technology and intelligence are just as decisive as war itself. And perhaps most importantly, it teaches us that freedom comes at a price. On this channel, we will continue to tell the stories of those who paid that price. Because forgetting is the greatest betrayal. Now we move on to the next episode. We are leaving World War II behind. But leaving it behind does not mean forgetting. A new war, a new era, and new questions await us. In our next video, we're moving on to a new era. A new war. 1950. The Korean Peninsula. And the conflict that went down in history as the Forgotten War. But within this war, one of history's boldest and most brilliant maneuvers took place. General MacArthur, Incheon, and the move deemed impossible. See you in the next video.